What's up all? This is David Amati speaking for Randolph Ramsey. The new Nintendo Switch OLED is almost out, with its release date of October 8th only a matter of days away. I recently got some hands-on time with this new version during a preview session with the upcoming Metroid Dread, and I'm sure the question you're all asking is the same. Is the Nintendo Switch OLED version, which at $350 is $50 more expensive than the base Switch version, is it worth it? Right now, that's not something that can be answered definitively, especially as I only had about an hour of playtime with the new console. My initial impression of it so far though is that it is worth it if only for that bright, beautiful OLED screen. If you already have a Switch, it may not be worth the upgrade, but if this is your very first one, then the OLED model looks like it represents the best version of this particular piece of Nintendo hardware. So what do you get for that extra $50 that the OLED version is asking for? As the name suggests, the main difference is in the OLED screen, which at 7 inches is significantly larger than the current Switch's 6.2-inch screen. It's immediately noticeable too, with the OLED screen having a thinner surrounding bezel. One other major noticeable difference is the unit's kickstand. While the existing Switch featured that dinky little leg at the back of the unit, the OLED version's kickstand extends across the entire back of the console. That means it is way more stable to use in tabletop mode. The new kickstand's angle can be adjusted, which means you not only have more stability, but the ability to easily change up your viewing angles. The unit's speakers too have been improved, and they sounded louder and crisper than what the vanilla Switch could output. Direct comparisons though were hard to discern, as I wasn't able to do direct side-by-side comparisons of the different Switches. The other changes to the Switch are much less visible and amount to some needed quality of life changes. The Switch OLED is slightly longer and slightly heavier, but certainly not enough to be noticeable when I was holding it in my hands. It now has 64 GB of internal storage versus the old Switch's 32 GB, and the location of the SD card slot has been moved to the back of the OLED version behind the kickstand. The new dock now has a built-in LAN port, which removes the need for an external dongle. And yes, the OLED Switch, as with all Switches now thanks to a recent update, now supports Bluetooth connectivity for headphones. And that's really it. The OLED Switch features the same processor as the existing model, which means there shouldn't be any real difference when it comes to performance with games. There's no stated difference in battery life, and there's also no difference in what the new Switch can output to a TV, which means both versions are capped at 1080p. What it boils down to is all of the improvements to this model are really designed around improving the handheld experience. Now, as I mentioned, we weren't able to do side-by-side comparisons, so it's hard to say definitively just how much better the new OLED screen is, but during my time with Metroid Dread, it certainly looked amazing. All of the features you've come to expect from OLED screens, darker blacks, popping color, and outstanding contrast, were certainly evident, and Metroid Dread was an ideal game to show off thanks to the look of its moody levels. The added screen real estate was definitely a large plus too. So back to that original question. Is the Nintendo Switch OLED worth the purchase? While you'll have to wait for GameSpot's official review of the system before we have a definitive answer, if you're not in the market for a new Switch, then I'd probably hold off and see if Nintendo does come up with a much improved version a little later. However, I can tell you that as someone who has a beaten up scratched launch Switch, I'd certainly want to buy this new OLED version, and that $50 premium seems like an acceptable price to pay for this decent upgrade.